Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 384th episode of my series, where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So today I'm returning to someone who's only had one review previously on the channel, that being Tyler, the Creator, whose magnum opus in my eyes would most likely be his 2019 Igor album. However, since that masterpiece is much more R&B than hip-hop, I've opted to start with projects that feature Tyler rapping on the vast majority, and that began with my video for 2017's Flower Boy, and I'll leave a link for that review down in the description below, since in it I discuss how that album served as a pivotal changing point in Tyler the Creator's long-standing career, basically setting the stage for Igor in many ways. However, while we all know he's continued to dominate well into the 2020s, you can't forget the early days with Odd Future, who I'll probably give a full-length review at some point on the page. And just in case you somehow aren't familiar, OF was a multifaceted collective consisting of Tyler, Haji Beats, Left Brain, Mike G, Damo Genesis, Frank Ocean, Taco, Jasper Dolphin, Sid the Kid, L-Boy, and Earl Sweatshirt, of course. And while this outfit has been disbanded for a good decade now, the music they released during that time is still incredibly nostalgic for me, and I assume many other people around my age. As the artists have acknowledged themselves, some of the over-the-top, purposefully edgy, early Eminem type of shock value that was employed throughout projects like Bastard or Goblin haven't aged all that well and were ultimately the result of relatively young and inexperienced MCs who were saying the grossest things they could think of just to make an impression, but also to make each other laugh, and not realizing that these words would be held against them a decade later. And considering Earl was literally 14 when he started gaining notoriety online, I think it's pretty understandable that he and the rest of them were still finding their voices. With Tyler, I've always been a bit torn because I have so many fun experiences of listening to his early work from front to back and enjoying the overarching storylines that include his reoccurring therapist character, but many of the fantasy stories painting sexual assault don't really hit the same way for me now as they did when I was a teenager, which ultimately leads me to today's album of focus, 2013's Wolf, because this thing has bits and pieces of that dark comedy that frequented the other Odd Future output, but you could definitely hear that Tyler was beginning to move away from those rapey themes and instead starting to incorporate more mature ideas, along with a jazzier, more soulful sonic approach that showed off his compositional skills, and those would also shine through on certain moments with the controversial follow-up, 2015's Cherry Bomb, but wouldn't truly be properly executed until Flower Boy and the work that followed. While it may have eventually been upstaged and improved upon, I would definitely say that Wolf was my favorite Tyler the Creator LP up until 2017, because not only are there some absolutely beautiful textured moments like the intro track, which is both hilarious and sonically gorgeous at the same time, but we also get some super grimy, nasty moments that harken back to old school boom bap, with the best example being the killer track Rusty. Not only is this my favorite song on Wolf, but frankly I can pretty confidently say that if I did a bracket of the all-time best Tyler tracks from every era of his career, this would end up at the very top, though there's definitely some bias within that statement. The reason I make that bold claim is because, for starters, Rusty has one of the grittiest, most flawless beats I've ever heard this dude put together. Plus, the verse we get from T is one of the most direct and pointed pieces of writing he ever penned. And then to finish it off, we're gifted with a couple of top-tier features in the form of Odd Future affiliates Earl Sweatshirt and Damo Genesis, with Damo also laying down the timeless hook that always gets stuck in my head. Another reason Rusty is such a memorable moment is because that was the song Tyler would end up performing live on David Letterman, and you should definitely give that video a watch if you haven't. Because while you can tell Dave and the audience has no idea what's going on, all three MCs nail their sections, and there's even a classic moment where as Damo's rapping, you see Earl and Tyler behind him doing this synchronized backup dance thing, and it never fails to bring a smile to my face. Even though Earl without a doubt had my favorite verse on this three-man weave, and Damo sounds maybe the hungriest we've ever heard him, it only makes sense to share a Tyler the Creator verse from Wolf. And I'm actually going to move away from Rusty only because his part on that track is a little too long to read, and instead go with a much more underrated cut, which is the track 48. I'm not sure why this song isn't more talked about because it's actually an extremely solid detour from the lovable yet over-the-top antics of Damo 23, along with the heartbreaking honesty and vulnerability of Answer. Plus it has some top-tier synth chords, which of course have always been a staple of Tyler's work, but here he was beginning to really pull from his knowledge of music theory, giving us sweet and serene melodic sections, opposed to that brash and off-key sound he started with. But back to the verse at hand, Tyler kicks off his sharp, perceptive verse on 48, rapping, "Shit is getting warmer. On that corner, gotta watch out for them 50 phoners. Your mother's a goner, I warned ya before you supersized my fries with that dollar. You got a daughter, shit's getting harder. The only thing you want to bump her was your freedom. You can't afford to get caught up, but you in too deep and the seashore ain't soil. You got a mother, she don't support you, but you bought her a new house cause you love her. Growing up you barely had a roof, now you have a coop and it doesn't have a roof. I guess you're accustomed to what you're used to. So you bought two, homie. They coming for you, homie. People be hating I'm doing them bitches like Susan and Karen be doing your pockets and running the man and he's losing his fucking mind and it's all an illusion. Who was eluding all of this potent? I am the reason your family is using and shooting up. It's my fault. You can blame me, motherfucker. We're killing your aunties and uncles, the hustle and hunger. All I wanted was a cheeseburger and a little chain, Tuck. Didn't realize this game fucked up some lives. Oh, how's mine? My conscience eats it up all the time, but other than that, I'm fine. I got a little money in my pocket. There's honestly way more to touch on with this album, like the passive-aggressive love ballad I Fucking Hate You, or the purposefully awful, hilarious posse cut Trash Wayne, where virtually nobody on it is even a rapper. But most importantly, there's an overarching story here that's arguably executed better than any of the concept pieces before it, since instead of just bookending tracks with a therapist asking questions, Tyler builds an entire world for Wolf, where Camp Flog Gnaw is an actual camp, and all the different aspects of his persona are the various campers, creating a really unique dynamic and story, which I don't really want to delve into too much further, since I think it's much more satisfying to listen to the LP yourself and put all the pieces together. All of the production here is completely handled by Tyler the Creator alone, which is pretty much always the case with his output to my knowledge, but while I touched on a couple guest rappers like Damo and Earl, there's a good amount of other Odd Future members and associates who make appearances, including Frank Ocean, Haji Beats, Letitia Sadir of Stereolab, Pharrell, Casey Veggies, Mike G, Nakel, Jasper, Taco, L-Boy, Left Brain, Lucas, Lee Spielman, Coco Oweno, and Erykah Badu. When it comes to my three favorite moments on this one, I think I would have to go with 48, Rusty, and Tree Home 95, but I definitely still want to shout out some honorable mentions, including tracks like Wolf, Cowboy, Awkward, Answer, Slater, Party Isn't Over / Campfire / Bimmer, and Lone. Thank you for watching my 384th video. Next time we are returning to a modern legend who's already been on the channel multiple times. So look for that upload, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your top 3 songs are off this formative LP. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.